Mayor Rob Ford of Toronto. Let that be your last statement. Throw down the mic.
Jon Stewart prepares to sign off from The Daily Show. Let's talk about Jon Stewart's success, how this American talk show host transformed television comedy in the United States in a mix of current affairs and lampooning and became a success right across North America. I'm joined by somebody who does something similar for CBC Television. Mark Critch, one of the stars of this hour's 22 Minutes, joins me now from St. John's. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. What do you think made Jon Stewart such a success?
Well, I think Jon had a likability and people could trust him. You know, in that real news world, you had Walter Cronkite or someone, people loved him because he was a trusted source and you believed what he said. And I think even though much of what Jon was saying was, made up and fake just for humor, you believed what he said. You believed that he felt this way. He said things that the ordinary person couldn't say to the politicians, and he was very, very funny. And after all those years, watching somebody when you're in bed at night just before you go to sleep, it's hard to see him go.
Yeah, he called himself a fake newsman, and he would make that point often. But I remember hearing him say that often and think to myself, that's not entirely true. What he is a commentator. Very much so.
Yeah, I mean, with satire, part of it is being funny and getting the laughs, but the other thing is you're delivering a message or you're giving a point of view to the audience. And what I loved about him is even my favorite Jon Stewart moments were the ones where he wasn't really trying to be funny. When he was on the Crossfire and took on Tucker Carlson, and he was angry about it. When he had Jim Cramer on and he was angry about these financial advice TV shows and stuff. And he really held his feet to the fire and he kept at it. And there's no humor there. There's nothing. But he was an angry guy. And I think oftentimes you hear of the angry young man, who then grows up and then he kind of becomes the kind of people he mocks when he's a millionaire or something. But with Stewart, I think he started, as a comedian and an author, wrote a very funny book, and then he had the late night talk show before Daily Show. Then he had the Daily Show, and he had all that Indecision 2008 stuff that was brilliant. And he seemed to get angrier the older he got.
Yeah.
He said he got more ticked off by the way things were.
Yeah, angry with a heart and angry with a sense of humor.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I remember when he interviewed Malayla, right? And he said the best part of his day was making her laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where that likability comes in, And people build a relationship with people over the years. And sometimes when these shows go away, whether it's Letterman or him or Carson, it is kind of like losing a family member or something in some small way.
Yeah. Why is it important to have these kinds of shows? What do you think they do for the audience? Is it strictly entertainment or is it an entertainment combo?
Oh, it's an entertainment and news combo. The great thing about shows like that, or a show like 22 Minutes or something, is you're reaching people that wouldn't necessarily go that deep into the news, and especially and you get people interested in it. I mean, a lot of times I'll have young people come up to me and they'll say, my parents used to watch your show, and then when I got in university, I was doing poli-sci, then I started to watch it, and I learned a lot from that. Or your average Joe will be watching a show or something, and they'll go like, oh, I didn't hear about that news story. I know they're making fun of it. And you explain it to people beforehand, and then you make your joke, and they go, I didn't know about that. They can't do that, can they? And that's kind of like a little grassroots effect that it has, and a lot of people get educated from it.
Yeah, you were at several tapings of the show, of The Daily Show. Any insight into the way that Jon Stewart engaged his audience and his guests behind the scenes?
Well, I think, people go to these shows and you watch them all the time. When you see them live, the energy in the room is quite amazing. And they're always small studios, so it's crackling with energy. But what you get to see then live is you watch a show and you kind of think, oh, it's a TV show, it's a rehearsed. But then you get a real sense of how much of it is in the moment. Especially with the interviews and stuff, and how much of a masterful stick handler he was. He could say more in a little kind of a goofy expression or one of those than a lot of comics would say in a whole monologue, And he really knew his audience. He really knew how to make them laugh. and he really knew how to. He was a great use of a pause, you know, a comic timing, just to give it a little bit of a break or a little bit of or something that would just set it up over the top. And if you ever saw him live, you certainly were aware of that.
Yeah, and how much of it, could you tell how much of it was pre-planned and rehearsed, and how much of it by him and his team, and how much of it was spontaneous?
Well, all these shows, it's like a lot of it is all, you know, sort of well written, and they have a huge staff of very intelligent writers. And but there's always be the head writer will come over at the break, because they're all shot to tape, to time, you know. So he'll come over in the break and go, okay, let's change this, let's cut this, let's not do that. But then in those interviews and stuff, you know, you could plan them out, but it's like a little tennis match back and forth, and in those moments you see him really come alive. Yeah.
Why do you think that in Canada we haven't had much success with a late night talk show?
I think networks had to double down on something like that and really want it. There's late night TV, there is no CanCon regulation, so they don't get any check marks for being a good network for putting something on Canadian, so it's easier to run Big Bang Theory or something. And a lot of times when they're making new shows, they're trying to have something, producers want to have something that's going to sell to the States, and Canadian satirical humor not huge in Minnesota. So they didn't know, so they're not chasing that down. It doesn't really get them anything. But one thing they had to remember is Canadian audiences are very, very smart. They're very well read. They love politics. You look at Mercer, you look at 22. 22's going into its 23rd year now. And there is room for that. And we should certainly, that's what they should be doing. And they're not expensive to make. But the thing is, you had to have somebody as a host. It's hard to find a host because the host has to, you can't just hire a funny comedian. They had to be somebody who has an interest in the issues, knows the issues, and has an opinion and something that they feel they can get angry about in the moment. You know?
Somebody like, I'm trying to think, who would be that person?
Rex Murphy, you're right. Rex needs a late night show so that the whole country can be put to bed all at once. And I believe I ponder that. We're well-rested nation.
I was thinking about you. There are others.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well, that's very sweet of you.
Mark Critch in St. John's, thank you so much.